From Journey with VRD, you're listening to the Visions, Missions, and Manifestations podcast, the number one place for spirituality, healing, and transcendence. I'm your host, Vivian Raquel Dayan. Now let's get into it. Back in 2022, I had just turned 25 and I was at the peak of self-discovery. I had questions and I was hungry for answers. Don't get me wrong, I was a self-proclaimed spiritual junkie since age 12. However, the pandemic, when everything was going wrong, triggered a deep want, a deep desire, a soul search within me, which of course led me to today's guest, Susanna Merrick, aka Aura Wear, aka Master Aura Reader and Coach. Welcome, Susanna. I'm so excited to talk about how you are changing and inspiring lives all across the globe, really.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. I love that intro. And I'm like, I have so many questions for you. I need to know all the things because I was like, didn't you had a reading with me like a million years ago, didn't you?
Okay, can we talk about that reading for 1 second? I don't know if you know how much you know about me, but when I was 12 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which led me to my first manifestation coach. Healed like no
Yeah.
inflammation, no medication, always obsessed with
Wow.
manifestation. Yeah. And I heard you on the Expanded podcast, booked a session with you ASAP. I was so into it. We had a session and you told me so much that
Yeah.
I sat there like literally sinking in every single thing you said. And one thing that stuck in my mind was you told me, and I might get the color wrong, but I think it was magenta was around me.
It was magenta.
It was
Yep.
magenta. And you were like, you know, something about seeing. And
Hmm.
for some reason, when I think back now, this could totally not be what you said, but how I remember it was
Yeah.
something about like, I don't know if it was entities or something of the sort. That
Yeah.
year, that year following that our call, I
Yeah.
led a retreat in upstate New York. And after I did that, I started seeing colors everywhere. From that retreat
Yes.
on the way home, I was
Yep.
unable to look at a car. I was unable to look at
Hmm.
fluorescent lights. To this day, I can't
Yeah.
drive at night because of the lights. Like something opened
Hmm.
up, and I had my same year and my first
Yeah.
encounter with an entity, which almost made me shit my
Ooh.
pants. Oh, excuse my
Yeah.
language.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there was
No.
so much in that session. And if you didn't bring up those words,
Yeah.
I think I would have been so confused. It was like an initiation in of itself in just
Mm.
that session.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that that was your experience because so much of what my gifts are and guidance is always leading to like encouragement or preparing you for. And so at least that's like the dots that I've connected over the years of doing readings. It's always like there's kind of this common collective theme that happens from when people come back to me or like what happened. So hearing that now and you came to me like 2020 was um like I had only started my business like pretty much the year prior. Well, I started in 2018 technically, but like I didn't go full time until that in the fall of 2019 when I started working for Goop. And that was like the only time I was able to fully go, okay, I can quit my other jobs. Like I can like full on do this. But I had still like only done like maybe like 40, maybe 50, 60 readings tops. Like honestly, mini readings I didn't really like, maybe more than that at that time actually, that's a lie. But like full on 1 hour full readings. I hadn't done like a ton at that time. And then when the podcast happened, holy, I was doing them like I was booked out from like 9 to 5 every day for like 6 months. Like the morning I woke up from it, I had to hire someone to come and like fix my calendar for me. Like it was crazy. And that's the guy, Brian, my Brian, who you'll meet later. But and if anybody's like, who's Brian? Who's Brian? Brian was you're like, my girls all say, we all need a Brian. We need a Brian. Everybody needs a Brian. Let me tell you. Brian works for Goop and did all the events that he booked me on and just became like a good friend. And we like started traveling together. And now he works for me. So he like left Goop. I like poached from Goop and now he works for me. And he like books all my events and like he's like acts as my manager. Anyways,
I
the
love
whole point
this.
is, and I had to ask him to come and like fix my calendar. I was like, come help me. And I think now looking back, it's like I have so much, like there's so many people that come back to me now, like 4 years later, like you told me this and this happened. And at the end of the day, it's like, yes, good. That was the encouragement like you needed, and you needed to kind of have that sense of self and awareness with the entity or whatever. Cause I don't like, I'm not like, I'm never the kind of reader who's like, there's a dark spirit with you. You need to book me longer because now I will like get rid of that dark spirit. Like, I'm not like that at all. So if I told you that, like it was legit. It was meant to be said so that you could like have that information and feel empowered, right?
100%. And it did not feel like scary when you told me. I think I even remember being like, wait, can you tell me more on that? And you're like, you're not ready yet. Like you'll get there. Something like that. Like you'll get there. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was just like, it stuck in my head. And then when it happened, I'm like, this is what she was talking about. So
Isn't that the best? It's like it's so helpful. It's so helpful. I even have like I have readers and intuitives that I see as well that are like my trusted friends, and they tell me things that I can't even see in my own orbit and in my own world because we're just like we're so close to it. But I do remember your session because I was in the kitchen earlier and I was like, I had a session with her. I remember I went and like listened and watched some of your videos again like last week, and I was like, oh, I definitely remember her. And I see a lot of people, and I remember being in the kitchen. I was like, I'm pretty sure her aura was magenta. But everybody's energy changes. Your colors change all the time. You have like circumstantial energy. You have like heart center energy. You have purpose energy. Like, you have colors floating around you all the time. But I sat in the kitchen. I was in the kitchen. I was like, I'm pretty sure she was magenta. So when you said that, I was like, ah, yep, I'm connecting the dots too.
it was such a life-changing moment for me that I remember that session vividly. Like I remember where I was after I booked the session. And I remember
Yeah, where were you?
I was on this, okay, it was a Friday night when I booked it. And
Yeah,
I was in my grandmother's house, and I remember feeling the railing of the staircase with my left hand and being like, I'm so excited I did that. And I'm so grateful that I had the money to book that. Like, that was another piece for me.
uh,
Like, I remember being like, wow, like I just spent something on myself. And like, I was smiling ear to ear, but it was like I use this word so much, I don't want it to be saturated, but it was like a really holy moment for me because it
yeah,
felt so like aligned and just exactly where I was meant to be. So I have a
yep,
question for you. So
yeah.
obviously,
Hit
for the
me.
listener who's listening, if you didn't get it by now, Susanna sees auras. And so I want to know, when did you realize that not everybody can see color around people?
Yeah, well, the my dad is a minister, but he's like a philosopher, and he has his doctorate in religion and teaches, and he also like teaches a drama class. He's very like quirky and funny. But I remember like I was probably around the age of 5, and I told my dad that I see colors around people, and sometimes I feel certain things, or some of those colors feel good, and some of those colors feel bad. And my dad, I just remember him like kind of like looking up, going, uh-huh, like nodding his head. He's like, yep, yep, that's an aura. Like Jesus has an aura. They're painted in pictures. They paint people paint them in pictures all the time. That's what a halo is. Like, and and in that moment, I kind of realized I was like, oh, I don't think everybody sees this. But you like when you're a kid, you don't like, you just see the world, and you just see. And I have so many experiences where color was just like and I think the best way to think about it, and people often ask me, do I see auras all the time? And the answer is yes and no, because I'm not seeing them. Like I'm not sitting down and I'm not seeing them. They're like peripheral vision kind of things.
Mm.
That's the way to think about it, right? Because I'll see it, but unless it's like really strong or something's happening, which is also why I'm like, I have been asked to do, I'm like been in over 100 articles and features over the like last 5 years. And the ones I turn down are always the ones when they're like, oh, will you read the celebrity's aura? And I always say no. And I like refer them to other people that I know that I'm like, go to this celebrity aura reader. Because to me, it just feels really icky. And it's like, I don't want to tell the world who I think that person is or what I see or experience unless I'm sitting with them and I can actually understand them and like where they're at. It's very vulnerable, right? And so I've always had that relationship with it, just like that extra layer of protection. But it's just not my style to be like, oh, let me tell you about Sabrina's aura. Like I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna if she tells me about her aura and we sit down together and I see her, I ain't gonna tell you guys. That's between her and I.
Wait, so
But
I'm
yeah,
so
right.
curious. When you do see an aura, right? Like you mentioned before,
Yeah,
your aura is always changing. And so what
yeah,
I presume is that you see the color and it could tell you a lot about the person now in the present moment.
right,
So how can an aura
right.
help somebody for their future?
This is a really great question. So here's what we know about aura from the surface. Like what most people, I always say people, we all speak color intuition. Everyone kind of has an understanding of the meaning of colors and energetically how they affect us and this and that. There is the surface level of it's the personality diagnosis, right? Where everyone's like, oh, well, you have this color. And then they like explain who you are. Well, yes, that is you, but also that isn't necessarily your aura, right? So that's
Mm.
like, so think about it this way. Color is the catalyst for like when you are an intuitive, if you are clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, and if y'all don't know what those are, listen, come over to my website. We will talk. But if you're any of these and you see auras or experience auras, that color becomes your channel. So it
Mm.
becomes your way of like receiving information, if you will. So I always say it's the catalyst for information that you're meant to know about yourself right here, right now. So color brings me messages. I give you those messages. So that's how I receive kind of like the prophetic or the like future like things. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you're not meant to know any of that information, right? But yeah, that's how it works for me. At least I'm like just I just like drop in, and then when I'm in those moments, it's just like, and people come back to me all the time like, you told me this and you told me that. I'm like, amazing. I'm like, I'm so glad I did. Like because I just get so in the zone, and it's just like I do my job. I do the thing that I'm supposed to do, which is see you and help you feel your what you already know yourself, but you just needed to like be a little bit reminded of it.
Mm.
Like, and I remember in your session talking a lot about you doing something similar to what I was like, what I do, which now makes so much sense because you're a manifestation coach and like, I do coaching, spiritual coaching as well. I do groups, I do programs. So like it makes so much sense. And I speculate that your intuitive gifts are like, yeah, I don't know, maybe you just spiritually haven't come out of the closet fully yet, but
That's so fun. I spiritually came out of the closet this year. It took me a long time.
oh
And it's
yeah,
so funny.
okay,
There's like a
okay,
podcast episode of me even like being like, wait, don't,
yeah.
no, don't tell people that. Like I didn't tell anybody, stop. But yes,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll say
Well,
spiritually.
it's like it's about to come to you, I think, in a really big way. It feels like, and it almost feels like there's some things that you needed to really like kind of cultivate to get to this point.
Thank you.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
There's a lot there. Like I will say, like
yeah,
the session with you triggered so much that without like you planted the seed. Without your seeds, I don't
yeah.
know if I would have watered that thing that was inside of me because I wouldn't have known it was
Mm,
there. I wouldn't have, you
mm,
woke me up to a whole nother layer of spirituality. It's funny, like I think about when I was a little kid, I would go into my bed. I felt like I was putting myself into a bedtime story, but I'd imagine a woman at the edge of my bed and she would be telling me things like she had long black hair and she would be telling me,
yeah,
don't worry, I'm protecting you and you're good. I never questioned it and I would have just shrugged it off and been like, well, I made sense of it as being like, no, I was giving myself a bedtime story. But it wasn't until you spoke to me in that session and just brought up like entities and this and that that like I was like, oh, oh, something else
do
exists.
you, Vivian? I'm gonna like I need to cut you off because I need you to know like I don't do that often. So like if it happened, like that was like, and I think that's like I want like who's listening to this also know the listener like that you're not gonna come to me and I'm gonna be like, oh yep, you see dead people like so, but it really speaks to what like because those dots all connect to your story and like who you are, and they're really specific to your gifts and understanding your gifts. So it makes so much sense that I said that to you and like that you had that experience.
You really opened me up to a whole nother layer of life and had such a profound impact on me. Pivoting back for a second with color, you get messages from the color. The
Yeah.
color like provides these messages. And so I need to know, do you hear a different voice or a tone from different colors?
Ooh. So clairaudience isn't something that comes up for me a lot in sessions, but every once in a while. And it usually comes when I ignore my intuition on something. And it's like, and it, and also it comes through sometimes. Like I'm not a medium, but it'll come through if somebody has something to say. And like I kind of pride myself on being like, I'm not a medium. I don't connect with the dad. Like I don't do that. And then of course these moments happen where I'm like, all right, so, and then usually it's like a really important connection for that person, right? But the whole point of my question is like, here's what I want to say about color. Color is there's aura reading and energy reading in that moment, but then there's also like this understanding of how you connect your senses to color. Like basically for the average person listening who's like, I'm very logical, I'm not very like I'm very analytical. And like you can think of it as synesthesia, where your senses are crossing. But whatever happens, something happens, and then I see and I experience, and the energy gets bigger and bigger and becomes louder visually or emotionally for me. But yeah, so I don't necessarily hear them or hear the colors. I do have clients that hear the colors, but I teach you in my programs like how to learn how to read color and energy and how to tap into one of your senses to be able to kind of translate it, whether that is clairaudient, whether that is clairvoyant, like whether it's clairsentient. Like for me, I consider myself much more clairsentient than I do clairvoyant because clairvoyancy is like messages. Like I consider a lot of pastors, a lot of like leaders, if you will, in more spiritual settings to be or like to be very clairvoyant because they channel through message, right? They channel through giving vision and creating. Like my joke is always like you're gonna go to a psychic and they're like, I see a rabbit and it's running with a clock and it just went down a hole. And you're like, great, what does that mean? Well, it means that you feel like time's running away from you, right? And so that's your job as the intuitive is to be like, hey, there's this sense that time is really slipping away. Like, what does that mean to you right now? And it opens up that connection for that person to really be like, oh yes, this is, it's not just about getting your fortune told or, just getting information about it's like also it's a conversation. It's about knowing yourself. And so I teach my girls, I have some men how to read energy through colors. But I think why it's so important for me is because I just found it to be kind of disempowering. It's also why I became a coach, fun fact. I found it really disempowering to just like tell somebody who they were. I like, and those readings didn't leave me feeling really great. It was the readings where I got to help. I got to like kind of co-create with this person the energy they wanted to be experiencing. So now I use and I have like a whole method to how to use color as a tool for manifestation, as a tool for healing, how to use it to be empowered and be embodied, how to dress accordingly and like in a ritual, like adornment way to connect your own energy. Because I just find that to be so much more significant than just like me sitting there telling you who you are.
So, how would one use color to manifest or use their aura,
Mm.
even color, aura, manifestation? How do they connect?
Yes, so you can change the colors of your aura. There's been like tons of studies that show this too, where you can like think about certain colors and then they will show up in your aura. But you can change your energy, right? We all know this. We can go from being happy to sad to like moody to ecstatic. Like that's your energy changing, right? So your colors are changing. So when you start to work with a color, you can use it to reprogram. So color, they like there's the jig is up, the jig is out. What do they say? Not the jig is up. The verdict's out, right? That the belief is that color is reflective and like energy, etc. I don't know if that's necessarily fully true. We don't know. We
Mm.
won't know until we're dead, kind of thing. But I think color is energy because I experience it that way. But that might not be how everybody else experiences it. And I always say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's energy or it doesn't matter if it's reflective. What matters is when you start to be really, really intentional with it. So working with color, choosing it, and then going, okay, I'm choosing, let's just say I'm choosing red because I think this was you. It might have not been you, but I think you talked a little bit about your visibility, like healing your visibility wound. So visibility, like think about your visibility wound, right? Where you're like a little bit afraid to be fully seen, or you're like, I'm ready to be in the spotlight, but then you're like feeling a lot of like, I don't know, like you're struggling, something's coming up, and you're like, why can't I manifest more followers? Or why can't I manifest, more visibility? Like I think you definitely had a big shift, right? When you started doing more speaking gigs and when you started to go from 8 people to 50 people, right? Like, like that is a huge jump in visibility, right? So if you were like working to heal that, you work with red, right? And you would be like, okay, I'm gonna pull this red top out, whatever. I'm gonna grab my red notebook. And for
Mm.
this week or the next week, I'm gonna write with red pen. I'm gonna get my red mug. I'm gonna like have these things around me. And then you're going to meditate with that color. You're going to write what you want to be experiencing, feeling, what you know about that color. Like red is all about being seen and bold. It's big. It's loud. It's fiery. And it also, you might have an aversion to it. You might be like, when I think of red, I feel this. And I don't really. I think of red. It's like very sexy. It's very raw, right? But then why do you not like feeling that? And so like you
Mm.
have that opportunity to kind of dig. So then what you come to, right? So that's the healing part of working with color. Then when you come to the manifestation, you start to write out what you want to manifest specifically from that color. Okay. So if you're wanting to manifest visibility, right? This is how you do it. So then when you see it around yourself, you're reaffirming and you're rewiring that part of your brain. So whether you are consciously seeing it and saying, okay, this is what I'm manifesting,
Oh my goodness.
or you're subconsciously seeing it, you're still telling yourself, you're reaffirming that message. So you're raising your value to meet the desire color. And it's wild. There's a lot of science behind it, which is not as sexy as the woo woo, but it works. And my women do it. I do it. And I've seen people manifest and create and heal things that like they've spent decades working on.
I'm obsessed. Attention, dreamers, doers, and manifestors. Big news if you haven't already heard, it's time to pack your bags because we're going to Sedona, Arizona next year. We're gearing up for the Sedona retreat of a lifetime this February. Immerse yourself in 4 magical days, February 14th to the 17th, of spiritual breakthroughs, powerful rituals, and deep connection in the breathtaking Sedona landscape. And here's a twist. Due to the overwhelming interest, we're considering opening the retreat to just 2 more people, but spots are limited and applications are already pouring in. Don't wait, the waiting list is officially open. This could be your sign to say yes to your transformation. Apply now at journeywithvrd.com/Sedona Retreat before it's too late, or direct message us on Instagram and we'll meet you in your inbox with the deets. You can find us on Instagram at journeywithvrd. Your next level of life awaits. Are you ready to claim it? Okay, now back to the episode. I'm so curious to know if there's something that you do in order to get in the zone of reading color or seeing color.
Yes. Like for me to drop in.
Yeah.
At this point it's really simple. It's so easy to drop in. Like so easy. But back I had to do a lot of like ritual stuff around energy clearing before and energy clearing after because I would just be exhausted. And I'm a generator, so I was like, this is weird. Why am I so exhausted after readings? And now it's very different. Like I'm like exhilarated. Like I come home and I'm like bouncing off the walls. My husband's like, you just read like 50 people. Like why are like I'm like, that's great. Woo! But anyways,
Yeah, I love it. I'm here for it.
but yes, so I do like usually to drop in, honestly, I stand in my room, I shake out my energy, I make sure I'm very good about like I don't schedule things at certain times in the morning before. I only take readings on certain days. So then those days I'm very clear on like what my rituals and routine is to like tap into those readings. I often tap into the readings. So I'll like look at usually on like a Sunday night, I'll look at the week that I have with someone. Like I'll look at the week, I'll look at my clients, I'll look at like my coaching clients, I'll look at like if I have events, and then I'll look at my aura readings. And then I just set like an intention that night because I do a lot of lucid dreaming.
Mm.
And especially like when I wake up around 5. Now my kid just like smacks me in the face because we co-sleep.
So cute though.
And anybody listening who co-sleeps, I see you. I see you. Um, but anyways, so like I do a lot of lucid dreaming, so I'll often receive a lot of messages
Mm.
from there. And in the very beginning, when I would do this, because lucid dreaming was like a big part of my spiritual practice before I started my business, it was like a big part of my healing journey. And I would get these messages, and especially during those times, I would have like 20 plus readings a week. Like I'd be like, what's this information for? Like I'd be like really on the look, and then like I'd be in readings like, okay, is this for this person? Is this for like, and now it's very different. Like if I receive those messages, they go like in my little bone notepad, and then I have them, I review them, and then it becomes so easy. It's like a muscle now. It's like I immediately can connect the dots. So I know
Wow.
who it's for. Like, I don't know. So anyway, so those are some of my rituals. And then I always clear my energy at the end and I shake it out. I do a lot of shamanic movement and dance work. So I usually do a lot of alchemy. So like if I'm feeling a lot of, because when you're clairsentient, it's inevitable. You're gonna feel a lot of like physical, emotional. My good girlfriend called me the other day, and I go, she's like laying down in bed. I go, girl, do you have a headache? Like, she's like, yes. Oh my God, I'm laying on. I'm like, you need to call me later. Love you, but like, I'm starting to get a headache because
Love
like
it.
that's just like the blessing and the curse of being clairsentient. And so like I have to clear up that energy. So I'll do an alchemy. So I'll do like one song where it's like whatever that emotion is I'm feeling or that feels heavy that I'm carrying from other people, I'll clear it out through movement and then I'll alchemize it into the emotion that I want to feel, right? So picking a song that does that. That's like that's not something I can take credit for. It's like a shamanic practice I am in a group for. But anyways, those are kind of the rituals I do.
I'm
If that answers your
obsessed.
question.
No, I love it. And it's so funny because I resonate with so much of this. Like when I used to do
Yeah.
in-person workshops, I'd be starving after, so hungry and so tired. I would
Hmm.
just sleep the rest of the day. It was insane. So
Yeah.
I definitely hear what you're saying and I feel it. It's real for me. I want to talk a little bit about babies and also dead people, two different
Okay.
spectrums. Okay, I want to talk
Oh,
about
those babies.
oh, those babies. But like the auras. And I'll give you a little bit of background why I'm bringing this up. I know that babies
Yeah.
don't start seeing color right away, and it's not until like a little bit longer in their maturity that they start seeing
Yeah.
color. And I guess for
Yep.
pets too, like pets also only see a couple of colors. So I wonder how might their auras look different than toddlers and adults. And then when it comes to dead people, this year, this summer, my grandmother passed away, who was basically like my mother.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I walked into the room after like 15 hours of her being dead. And it was almost like a push of like
Mhm.
energy. And for me, if I were to say it would be any color, I would say it was like a clear white. And so I'm so
Yeah.
curious when it comes to these different phases in the human experience, what you could say about color and the energy that they're.
Oh, yeah. There's so much in all of that. First of all, I'm so sorry you lost your grandmother. I also lost my grandmother at 100 this last year, so I get it. And just to kind of like, well, probably likely affirm what you're already feeling, but energetically, whenever that happens. So like I really believe there's two things. One, Lacey Phillips talks a lot about how we come into this world and we're pure and we are, yes, this is true. But also, I believe that we are a collective of energies because when my mom died, holy shit, it was like everything fell apart at the same time, which is what healing's all about, right? And having to like kind of learn to the one person in the world, like grandmothers and mothers and fathers, and like these people are the people that love you the most. That, and so it's like really when that layer is kind of gone, the level of love that you have to start to learn how to like create for yourself is intense. And anyways, I had mannerisms that I never had before after my mom died. I started doing things that I thought was so weird that I was like, this is not my mom thing. And my mom was like super, super intuitive and psychic. And she was like very, which I relate to, violet energy. So violet energies are like foreseers, seers of the future. Those who usually help with manifestation. And Magenta has a lot of violet, and we'll get to that later. But that was my mother. And then all of a sudden it kind of started happening to me. And that's kind of like sort of why I was like kind of a little bit rejective of it. Like I was like, I'm not a medium. I don't want to do that. I don't want to connect. But anyways, I really believe that energetic experience that you had with that white energy and that push is your soul like alchemizing, like you coming together. Like that's the ancestral part of it, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if you had similar experiences. Like when my grandmother passed, all of a sudden here I was, mannerisms, thoughts, things that I was just like, oh, this isn't fully like me, but it is me, right? And so
Yes.
that there's that part, right? And then babies are really interesting. Like the Japanese believe that the baby's soul, like a couple things, they believe like the soul is like circulating around you, and then like, but then the soul doesn't fully come through until like after 6 months. Like you hear all these different things, right? The color I experience the most with babies and dogs is yellow, and
Wow.
this is not that surprising. It's just like cooey little yellow, happy energy, right? I see other colors around children, but I think the reason we don't see a lot of them is because they're just in that like incubation, like growing of their energy phase. I sense colors with babies that I've associated
Mm.
as their aura colors and then seen them later. So, like my son, I knew he had, and it's so funny. His favorite color is yellow, which is so funny. So yellow, yes, but also like turquoise. Like I was like buying him so much turquoise stuff. My husband and I went and got our auras photographed. Like after my first scan, I was like, we gotta go to because my doctor was in Soho. So I was like, we gotta go down to Chinatown and get our photos. And that's when the color came in. It was like so bright, so like turquoisey and then I got my aura done by myself. This is like after he was born. This was like when he was like 19 months. I got mine done by myself. My husband got his done by himself. And then I go, I want one with Homer sitting on my lap. That's my son. And so I put his little hands on it. And it was like that mix. Mine was like very pink, magenta, and violet at that time. And his was like all that like turquoise, but had a lot of white in it, which is
Mm.
true for a lot of children, like a lot of purity, right? So, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
The baby comes in with the purity, with the white light, and it's so cool and interesting that when somebody passes away and they have that white light, it's also a sign of purity, maybe just maybe, but I
I
think
think so. Yeah.
that's a beautiful way to look at it.
You leave behind all the gunk. Like you leave behind all the gunk, and then she got to give you like just her purest of essence and energy. That's what it feels like for me. Anyway.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to
Yeah.
ask, as a parent, as an intuitive parent who
Hmm.
could see color, do you think it's something that's hereditary that maybe your son will get, especially because your mother was really intuitive?
Yeah. It's funny. My mom took me to the eye doctor when I was a kid. Because I mean, it's like, and she was like, can you look at her eyes? I had great vision. And my mom was like, well, she keeps telling us that she sees like certain colors and that. This is I was like 7 or 8. Like I was a little older, but I was like still like open about talking about it. I also was homeschooled, so I wasn't around a ton of kids to like know to hide something or not yet, which that happened later on. But I remember like clear as day, the doctor was like, well, she could have just like more receptors or cones in her eyes. Like it was like very matter of fact. And I do like if you ever do those color tests, like I can see every color. Like I can see, like I can like take the test and go through and like and see layer after layer of color. And I think, if there is that part of it where it is not just spiritual, it also maybe physical of manifestation.
Mm.
I, I hope he can see it. Like I really hope that can happen for him. There's like also like blessings and curses of it. Like I I was on set last week for a really exciting campaign that I booked, and I had to just grin and bear it, but my I was it was killing me because the lights were so bright, and I have a lot of sensitivity in my eyes. Like I get halo migraines. Like I've all well I think they're halo migraines, or at least that's what I've been told they're halo migraines. But I get a lot of these kind of ailments that come from just being sensitive to light and color. And so there's that. So we'll see. Like that'll probably be the first sign if he's like, seeing colors and saying or like recognizing it and then having any sort of experiences. I was very sensitive as a kid too to just light and stuff. But yeah, anyways, I do think it is hereditary. I think though also it is something that I know now after doing thousands and thousands of readings. It is a skill and it's a muscle that you have to flex. And the way that I read now is so like light years ahead of like what I read before, how I read before. And as I'm like teaching women and I have a certification coming up, a program coming up next year, I'm seeing in real time like these jumps that these women are making
Mm.
with not only just being able to nurture the raw, beautiful gifts that they have, but then taking skill and education and like putting it all in one place and then and building an integrity and the spiritual safety of it all. Like it is wild to see people just like happen to these gifts in a way that I'm like, oh, it's not just as like woo woo, close your eyes. Like you're actively pursuing it and you're learning at the same time. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
1000%. And I want to talk so much about this course that you're doing, the certification that you're doing in 2025. But I do want to ask one question before we get into that.
Yeah.
You were talking a little bit about how you were homeschooled, and when it wasn't until you were a little older that you realized there were some parts that you had to hide about yourself, or you felt like you had to hide about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wonder what a societal norm is that you had to break in order to fully own the spiritual gift that you have after you felt like, holy shit, this isn't the norm and people are going to think I'm weird or whatever it was.
Yeah, this is such a good question. I mean, I think the societal norm that like broke that is I was in college and I went to art school and like mushrooms and weed like literally every or in like every like treat platter you walk into in an art school. And I would like at parties or things like with close friends. So like close friends knew this about me. I kind of be like, I can do this thing. Like I can like see your colors or what energy you want me to like tell you. And they'd be like, "Oh, that was actually really helpful." And like before, it was just like my fun party trick. It was just like this fun thing that like I would share with somebody if I felt close to them. And I was like, "This thing about me." And then only in college did I really like feel embraced for it. Like
Mm.
I didn't feel weird. I had five brothers, and they were horrible to me, except for my oldest brother. Loved him, but he was like a second dad. And my two youngest brothers, we are very, very close. But basically, my brothers in between, they're horrible to me and made me feel like I was such a weirdo for everything. So I think that was a big part of me just
Mm.
like hiding it. And also just like, you're too loud, you're too this. Like, so I'm learning that in my trauma now as an adult that like so much of my visibility wounds like come from that like not feeling even safe to be seen in my own family, right? So yeah, and then I think what really kind of changed it all, like so that happened and I would feel more safe, especially around creatives, like people
Mm.
that were creative or like got it or understood. And I remember I used to nanny for a family and the mom was like makeup artist at Juilliard. And I remember like we were all sitting in the back room, she'd just gotten home and we were like the kid and I had just finished playing and they were sitting there and there was like a white closet wall behind them. And their colors just when they were like together, like they just like they had like such a special bond. Like now as a mom, I know like, oh, when you have a son, you have this special bond and a daughter. But anyways, I just remember seeing it and their energy was like so big and like it was so loud that I couldn't not talk about it. And I felt very safe with them to share. And that was kind of like the around the time that I was like starting to connect the dots. What do I want to do next? Like I all these things just kind of started to align. Like someone gifted me Marie Forleo's B School, like my mother-in-law did. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I thought it was gonna be like a mommy coach because I was just really great at like giving advice and like working. Like I would always make these moms feel really good, but like I wasn't a mom myself yet. And yeah, and then it was just like one day I just got the full on download for Aura where it was like just boom, I still have the book, I put it in everything. But and then after that, how I felt safe to share with people is what I teach my girls all the time, which I call is Sasha Fierce syndrome. Do you know who Sasha Fierce is?
No.
No, so Sasha Fierce, if you don't know who Sasha Fierce is, oh, you do know who Sasha Fierce is, and I'll tell you who it is in a second. So Sasha Fierce is Beyonce's alter ego that
Oh.
she created because she's extremely shy and she created this aura of energy for her on stage so that she could really just like bust out and be her and like anyway she had a whole album she called Sasha Fierce. So I call it Sasha Fierce syndrome. You have to create Sasha Fierce syndrome
Love
and so
this.
you're tricking, yep, you're tricking yourself into it. So instead of like the example I always give is like I would be really uncomfortable talking to people about aura wear. And then one day I was like, no, like this is not like this is an exciting thing. This is something you love. You have a lot that like is coming for this and that's connected to this. And because I didn't like talking about it, it's because people would like always have a reaction. It was either intense, like, oh my God, you do that? Whoa, that's amazing. Like that intense, or it'd be like, oh yeah. Like there was no in between. And it was just like a lot for someone who's clairsentient. So I started to create this like persona energy that I would like have in those moments where when people would ask me, I'd be like, yep, this is what I do. And then if they had a reaction either way, I would just like pull their leg or something. Like I'd be like, if they were really excited, I'd be like, oh, well, you have to have a reading with me to find out what it's all about.
Oh, I love
Or if they
that.
were like, oh yeah, what's my aura? I'd be like, do you want to know? Do you really want to know? Like I would just mess with them.
Oh my goodness. I love that.
Yeah, so that created so I think so much of the magnetism that followed after that. But I think it took that kind of like me tricking my brain into being this version of myself that just ultimately was me and is me now.
A
Does that make
thousand
sense?
percent. 1,000%. And it's so interesting because I remember after a session, I was really working on my spirituality, on also just like how to be human. I
Yeah.
hadn't really had a mother figure in my life for 7 years. As I was moving through all these different pieces, I accidentally took mushrooms. I was really depressed.
Oh, oh no. That's never good. That's never good.
I didn't even know what it
Everyone's
was.
listening. They're like, act. No, no, no.
I was so innocent. I was so innocent. I was depressed. First of all, like I hate chocolate and I only crave it if I'm
Oh, yeah.
sick or sad. And I went to a
Yeah.
friend's apartment to talk about my sadness and he was in the bathroom and on his coffee table he just had chocolates. I was like, whatever, I'm hungry, why not? And I ate the entire bar. Okay? And he came out of the
Oh,
bathroom, mouth opened so wide. He didn't know how to tell me what was going to happen. And because I was so sad, he thought I was going to have the worst experience of my life. He was so scared for me, but he
yeah.
sat down the whole time. And it was the best moment of my entire life. I was having these
Yeah.
crazy downloads, and I remember thinking, like, if I didn't do all this work, I would think I'm having a psychotic break. But this is just like validating everything that I've been doing. And I
Yeah.
remember speaking with my coach at the time and telling her this.
Yeah.
And I was scared. Like I thought, because I know she was sober, like I thought she was going to judge me so hard. And she was cracking up. She thought it was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
And she was like, Vivian, I also sometimes do ceremonies, like it's okay, because I was like in the shame and guilt, like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. That's so bad. And like she said, it always finds you when you're ready for it. And I feel like in your journey, it was meant to really
Yeah.
break you out of that shell as well. Like you were like being more open with
Mhm.
your college friends. And so I love that you kind of also had that like little nudge from the mush to like get
Mhm.
into your purpose and do what you're actually meant to be doing.
I was like, it's so funny you ate like a whole bar.
Oh,
I would take like the tiniest nibbles, and I would smoke more weed. Was me. I was me. I was like smoking the weed way more than eating the shrooms. But I would take the tiniest little nibbles. So I can't like when you said that, I was like, oh.
no, no, no. It was crazy. Like it was crazy. It was crazy. Also, like I never did a
I mean,
psychedelic before. I didn't know what I was doing. Like that was
yeah,
an accident.
yeah,
Ugh,
yeah.
but it
I
was
mean, listen,
amazing.
they can be and there's so much coming out now too about what listen, they say something like we only use like 10% of our brains. Like it's so wild to me. And whether I use like zero point 0.5 more, and that's why I'm able to access, I don't know, who cares? The whole point is that like shrooms and any kind of like psychedelics, they're opening up these pathways, like for especially for like veterans and like with PTSD and like helping them through these like really depressive episodes and the really difficult things they've seen in combat and like there are so many amazing things that are happening from people's experience with these things that are in their healing and their and mental and emotional mental health and healing in that space, right? So I think this guy's the limit. I think there's so much more that's going to come out with them, but you know, having them in a controlled room with a professional is much different than just being like a 20 something doing
A
it's
thousand
reckless, right?
percent. 1,000%. But what I love about you, Susanna, is that like you said
Yeah,
before, our spiritual gifts are something that we need to exercise like a muscle. And I love that you help people do that and you kind of guide them through that. And so I'm so interested to hear what you're doing in
yeah.
2025 with this group session, with this group workshop.
Oh my God. Well, there's so much happening. This, I mean, honestly, in the last, probably since like, right after what Leo was like right after, like Leo going into Virgo season, I had a really tough year, like really tough from like Scorpio season on, just like life thing after life thing, boom, boom. And I really didn't know what was coming up, but I knew I needed to do some really significant healing. Like it was like so obvious and like it like presented to me over and over and over again. Like, okay, okay. And I kept being like, okay, this is the month, it's done. And then be like, boom, boom. And I did it. And I hit on some really big things that I needed to connect to. And I felt the shift. And then I was like, cool. And then the last couple months, I've just been like feeling this energy. And then all of a sudden, oh, like all of these manifestations I've had since like 2018, 2019 are like now coming to fruition. And the certification, stay tuned because right now I like, okay, so I'll just start. Like, I know everyone listens to this, is like a manifestation believer and achiever, right?
Mhm.
You really do. You have to meet your desire. You got to meet the value of your desire. And if there is anything you need to heal in the process, like the universe is going to be like, great, here you go. Like, this is time. You got to do this. And especially if you're manifesting something big, you have to have the capacity for it. And if you don't have the capacity, it's not going to happen. If somewhere in the back of your brain that you believe, you just like don't believe that you can fully do it or that it's hard or whatever, it's not going to happen. Right. So I knew I just had to get to this place. And I'm not even kidding you. Like this was 5 weeks ago, 4:30, I got an email and this like does not happen. Like the odds of this happening is insane. I got an email from an associate editor at a traditional publishing house being like, hey, I'm looking to add a book on auras, like blah, blah, blah. And I found you and I just been down the rabbit hole reading about your work and reading about, I want to learn more about your method, da, da, da. But I think this could be a really great book. Like, can we chat? Da, da, da. the first time I was like, oh, this is totally a vanity thing. I joked the following year because I had like a vision that I was going to get a book deal. And I joked with Brian. Everybody needs a Brian. I said, Brian, oh, the book deal didn't come through in the fall. Ha ha. And when this happened, I called Brian. He goes, "Do you remember last year you joked that the book deal didn't come through? It was this year." Like, but this is what's crazy is that within that same hour, I received what they called a casting for an aura reader who's a stylist, but blah 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 blah. Like they basically it was a casting written about me. So they pitched me to this brand, and I got hired and paid like over five figures to do this campaign for this brand. But that all came through in the same hour. Like that was 4:30 to 5:30.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I hope you're doing,
So
are you doing
to
both?
come, so yes, I already did one. I did the campaign already on the 14th. It was super fun. And I like can't talk. I can't. I'm hopefully by the time this podcast episode comes out, the campaign will be out. You
Ooh, I
can see it
love
on
it.
my Instagram. But well, the book came through. But here was the thing. I thought maybe it was a test because I've always wanted to focus more on the method of styling and color. Like there's this company from the 80s called Coloring Beautiful that I've always been like, oh, I want to be the next generation Coloring Beautiful. And for those who are listening, if you're like, what the heck is that? It's color analysis, basically. And I just want to turn color analysis on its head and teach you how to like to know your colors and to like work with your colors and how they connect your aura. Anyway, so when it came through, I was like, oh, this isn't quite it. This might be a test because I want a book that's not spiritual based, but fashion based about spirituality,
Mm.
right? A spiritual approach to fashion. So they pitched it. It like didn't go over super well with the sales team. So they came back and they're like, well, we're gonna pitch it as a fashion book. And I was like, okay, wait, this is it. Okay, there's no test. This is it.
Wow.
So now it is so that's what I hope is like my next step is to like start to just get the message of this work out.
Hmm.
And then I want to certify or a stylist. I want to teach women how to be like psychic, intuitive style, like do what I do, basically. And what's crazy is that I trademarked Aura Stylist back in 2018 when I was like doing all my LLCs and everything. And I never knew what I was like fully going to do with it, but now I know. So that's the certification. So you get your certification of being an aura stylist.
Wait, also, hold on. You probably realize this, but I'm realizing it as you're saying it. And also, 2018
Yeah.
was a year that you wrote all this stuff down and that like it's now
Uh-huh.
coming into fruition. So it's like your past self was taking care of your future self, which is
Yep.
so cool. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. It's wild. It's like it still blows my mind, but at the same time it feels so right. Like everything feels like, yep, this is the next transition. Yep, like this is the next chapter. No pun intended. Pun intended. And that's it. Like it's still the vision. And I think that's what was so hard about last year is that like it felt like it just like sunk into the sea. It was just like,
Mhm.
is this ever going to happen? Do I have the capacity for this? And when I really started to look at it, I was like, oh no, I have some major visibility issues. I have some major money stuff I needed to heal. Like there was a lot of stuff that I needed to just like go through the trenches of. And then once I came out on the other side, like everything's just like, and so yeah, next year's gonna be wild. Buckle up.
I'm so excited. And we're going to put like your Instagram, we're going to put all the links that were sent to me from McKinley in the show notes of this episode. So everybody listening will be able to have access to you in the ways that you want. But really
Yeah.
quickly, rapid fire. Are you ready for some rapid
Yep.
fire questions? Okay.
Let's do it.
If you could go for dinner with anybody, dead, alive, fictional or real, who would it be and why?
Oh God, I thought about this the other day and I was like, oh, it's such a good question. Who did I say? Oh, I would love to go to dinner with Edgar Casey. I think that would be really exciting. And then, I mean, I'd love to sit down with Tony Robbins. I think that would be really amazing. I just think he's so amazing and just like his aura and his energy, like that would be great. And maybe Mel, if I could like have a third, it'd be like Mel Robbins, just because she'd like bring the vibes. Um,
Hold on. I'm so sorry,
that
but
would
do you see the light flickering right
hmm
now?
hmm
That is insane. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just gonna I'm just gonna turn it off, I guess. That is very strange. I'm so sorry. It was distracting, but
No, it's not. That's very normal. Flickering lights are always usually spirits, like truly, like energetically. That happened with the night my mom died. My grandmother gave me this like really hideous like tapestry, like a like of it was like this tapestry that like hung up that looked kind of like a scroll. And then it was like it was at Christmas what time my mom passed around Christmas, and it was like the three wise men or whatever, and it had these little lights in it, and when we got it, it wouldn't work, and my husband put batteries in it and it wouldn't work, and we're like, oh, whatever. And I just kind of joked, I was like, well, we should just just put it up, it's fine. Like we'll put it up, we'll like FaceTime her and she can see it or whatever. And then anyway, the night my mom died, we were like watching White Christmas, of all movies, which was her favorite movie. um, and my husband went to bed and I was just like on the couch still like processing it. And all of a sudden that thing started flickering like crazy.
oh my gosh.
And then just like flickered and then went really dim and just stayed on. And then the next day, Graham was like, we couldn't turn it on and off, and it never worked again. Same thing. My dad had an angel that my mom and him bought years ago in the 70s. Like the top of the tree was like this old school angel. And she like a night or two after, he's sitting in the living room and the light just went pop, and it like has never worked since. So, and my brothers all have stories about lights. And like it happens a lot too when I'm talking to someone about a spirit or like a family member. It
Oh
always
my
comes through
God.
the lights. I don't know.
Very interesting. Not part of the rapid fire, but
So,
it wanted
okay,
to
but back to the rapid fire.
come. Very cool. Tony Robbins, love it. Yes. Okay.
Well, Mel Robbins,
Mel
no
Robbins,
relation,
no
and then
relation.
Edgar
Love Mel Robbins
Casey.
too. Edgar, yeah, all of these are incredible humans. We know that you have a sixth sense, but if you were to have a seventh sense, what would that be?
Oh,
What would you want it to be?
we've been watching Harry Potter a lot recently. I never got into it, like because I was in like my husband and I were like graduating high school, so like we kind of missed that cusp. So we started watching it. And ooh, I do think it would be like the ability to conjure up spells or like or
Mm.
fly. I just went and saw Wicked, so I'm very
You
like,
saw
oh yeah, to
Wicked,
fly.
the movie or the Broadway show?
The movie. Oh no, well, listen, sis. I am the original fan. You know, those listening, I am the original fan. In 2004, I came to New York with one of my best friends. I can't believe our parents let us come here for our senior trip, the two of us. My other girlfriend was a year older and she lived here and she was an actress. And we stayed with her. Anyways, we won lottery tickets. And that's like, it hadn't even been out since it opened in like October of 2003. I was like obsessed the moment it came out. We went and we did the lottery, and I won the very last ticket. It was just one.
Wow.
And so we're like, my friend's like, you should go, you have to go. And I'm like, no. And then this lady came over. She's like, we only need one. You want the other? And so we ended up going and we like I dressed in green, she dressed in pink. It was like this whole thing. And anyways, I saw the entire original cast. I knew I had to go see this movie. And I went and saw it today and it was insane. And you always see it. You're not going to be disappointed. But yeah, I would want to
Okay, I love
fly
that
with my
one.
broomstick.
I love that one. I love both. I love conjuring up spells. I love flying with your broomstick. I'm here for it. And then, what are three pieces of wisdom that you'd give yourself if you were just starting out today?
I think the biggest thing I would say is that when you set off on a journey to create a different life for yourself, or when you set off to change your career or change your life in a different direction or move across seas or whatever, the first thing you need to be doing is just healing and just focusing on what needs your attention, what needs to be seen and experienced about yourself. So, whatever ways you need to do that. And then I think the wisdom I would say is like the manifestations are always the door prize. Like they're the thing you get for showing up. Like I just like wrote this in an email, but yeah, like all of the success I've had is truly just the door prize for all the work that I've done. on myself, and that is the real gift. And like I truly like I don't know, there was I spent so much of my life as an actor performer like craving attention and craving and needing this validation that now I'm like, I'm cool, like it's just like hang out in my living room for the rest of my life with my family and be so fine. But what gets me up every day is like the people I get to help and the message I get to share and like the inspiration in it all. Like that's what like gets me going and gets me to the table. It's not the articles, it's not the fancy shoots, it's not all these things. So that's the wisdom I would always say is like when you shift your focus, it becomes so easy for those things to come through the door, but they're truly not what are going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy is like just deeply showing up for yourself.
That was so beautifully said. Are you connected to your spirit guides? And if so, what's something you can share about them?
Oh, okay. Full disclosure, I talk to like maybe one energy or spirit energy, but for the most part, I call my ancestors.
Mm.
I don't really talk to spirit guides that much, and here's why. Because there's a fine line between like these spiritual gifts and psychosis, you guys. Like this is real. And it is real. You got to be able to suss that shit out. And how you suss that shit out is by like flexing that muscle, understanding it. I don't like I really like to look to my own knowing and wisdom and my
Mhm.
own stuff that I don't really seek out. But there are times when I'm like, all right, I really would love some clarity. I'd love some answers. I'll call them my ancestors more. But I did reconnect. I have connected with spirit guides before. And there's like one that I swear she looks like every time I see her, she's like wearing like I swear to God, she looks like she works at Walmart. I don't know. And
Great.
she's like so I know. It's literally like it's like the Target ladies, like my spirit guide. I swear to God.
Oh
I
my gosh,
swear
I
to God.
love it.
And she's like got this kind of like funny little short hair. I st-
It's giving the happy
it's
place or the good place vibes. That's what I'm
oh,
getting.
totally. It's totally like good place had like she's just very matter of fact. She's great. Like the energy times I've connected with her, but that's kind of been like the only time like that I go through like she greets me. So, ask me in 10 years, maybe I'll be like talking to my spirit guides more. I just not really my thing. Well, I'll tell you why really quickly. And I know this is not rapid fire, but I'll tell you why. It's because as a coach, I think so much of our work is about asking questions and getting really curious and really helping someone like find that deep answer within that it's really frustrating to me when clients come to me and they're like, well, my spirit guides told me this and this. And I'm
Right.
like, I'm connecting dots. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're real comfortable with that message, aren't you?
Okay,
And it
I
feels
totally
safe to
see
take that
that.
message, right? You see what I'm saying? So I think I don't I I know that I have really good girlfriends and intuitives that connect through theirs all the time. They use them in their session. I think that's great. I just think that sometimes for me, I'm like so much of my message and my work is about like trusting yourself and empowering yourself. They just kind of get in the way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. No, no, no. That's real. That's real.
Yeah.
And I'm totally fair. Totally fair. What's a book that
Yeah.
changed your life?
Oh, the Firestarter Sessions by Danielle Laporte or Danielle Laporte, I think that's her name. Um, she also wrote Desire Map, which is also very good. Oh, why? I'll just boil it down. She talks about what do you want to feel from the moment your feet hit the floor to the moment your head hits the pillow, and how do you take that and how do you feel that in everything you do in that day? And why this was so life changing is because that is how you manifest. Like, so you manifest by getting into that vibration that you want that thing feels like. It was game changing. Like I was manifesting left and right all the time because I'd be like, I want to feel creative today. So like I'd be like making breakfast and be like, I feel more creative. How do I like tap into my Martha Stewart? Like so that was game changer. And her whole message was that she got fired from a company that she built, and her first emotion and feeling was relief.
Oh my
Where like
goodness.
she like pulled over the side of her. This happens actually a lot. Like so, what will happen is you'll build a company, it'll be like millions and millions of dollars, and then basically you have a board, and then that board basically like pushes you out. This is like if you guys watched Martha Stewart, that's what happened. Pretty much happened to her. But yeah, it happens to people. And anyway, she said she felt relief, and she was like, "Huh." that's a funny feeling to feel when my company just got taken away from me. And so she was like, that's what she was like. I really just want to figure out what I want to feel every day, like my core desired feelings. And so that book was a game changer for me. Ah, yeah, there's so many good books, but that one in particular. Oh,
And
and Big Magic.
ooh,
Ugh, Big Magic. Elizabeth Gilbert. Wait, you haven't read these?
no,
Wait, okay.
no.
Like go put them in your Amazon cart right now. Elizabeth Gilbert wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
so she wrote a book called, and so basically she believes that I like it comes down to ideas or energy, and like you receive ideas.
Last question. What are three myths that people come to with all the time or the most with when it comes to auras and energy and color? And then what are three surprising facts about energy, aura, and color?
Yeah, I think the biggest myth is that they come to me and they think that they have this one color and that's a personality diagnosis. That's just not true. Like there's 12 layers to your aura. You might know seven of them as your chakras, right? But these layers are not like layers. They're like aspects of you. They're parts of you. So that and all of them can be tapped into at different times in your life and you can access them. So I think that's the biggest myth. And then moving into what's surprising is that your aura can change and you can change it, and that you have the ability and power to shift your energy, and you can do it with color. I think that's a really big, hopefully a big takeaway for those listening. I remember one time there somebody's some some famous orator's husband went like on a smear campaign, which you guys I loved because I was like, oh, this means I'm doing something right. Amazing. But they like wrote to every article, every person, and mind you, I'm like friends with all of these people because they're like I'm a good source and like they're my friend. And her husband went on the smear campaign being like, if you want a real aura reading, go to blah 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 blah. And so I was like, I'm gonna start listening to your podcast. And I had a lot of clients that would come to me and were like avid followers where they'd be like, well, I really don't like doing laundry. So I know I'm a yellow.
Oh,
And like they would say these things like, and like I have a really hard time being in big social settings, so I must be violet. Or like it was like these things. And I'd be like, that's an aspect of you, but like not you. I think we're getting to an age in time where we're waking up to the bullshit. And I think as coaches and as space holders, like we're seeing it too. Like everybody's oversold to, everybody is like overtold they're gonna get rich quick. They're gonna, change their life in 5 minutes. And like it's just everybody's too smart for it. We're getting too smart. And I think that it's kind of the same thing. Like the old philosophies on aura are just like they're all personality diagnosis. And it's just that's like such a small aspect of it. Like it's so much more to discover and understand about yourself through it. So that I think is like the biggest thing. Like, and I think I've seen that shift too, especially after COVID. Like so many people just came to me were like very like, and now people come and they're like they understand that they're like, oh yeah, I'm a dynamic human. That makes sense that I
mm.
have many colors. Like, and that this color would be important right now, and that actually I also want to call this color in to support me. Okay. Like it's like a different conversation.
I hear it. And I have to say, speaking to you has been a total breath of fresh air.
I think the biggest revelation I had that like I was like the biggest thing in my fear of being seen, it was this getting singled out part
Mm.
of it, like being singled out in social settings, being singled out in my mom group, being singled out, like either people loving or hating what I do. Like that was like big part of it, and being afraid that people wouldn't like me or call me a bitch. Like, like people call like successful women bitches. And it was my biggest aha, and all of that was that oh my God, we're not actually afraid of visibility. We're afraid of the backlash
Mm.
of visibility, and rightfully so, because as women, it's real. We watch women be torn down in front of us all the time. And so my whole thing was I got like this download for what I call be that bitch boot camp, where it's like be that bitch is about us reclaiming it. Like, all right,
Mm.
I'm gonna be that bitch. Like, I don't care what the world thinks around me. I'm gonna be that bitch, and I'm gonna say it before you. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Pitch Perfect, where they're like, she's like, "Hi, I'm Fat Amy,"
Oh yeah.
and they're like, they're like, "You call yourself Fat Amy?" And she's like, "Yeah." The bitch is like, "You don't do it behind my back," and it's kind of that energy where it's like we're gonna say it first before you say it behind our backs. Like we're claiming it first, so you can't use it against us. Like, so, anyways, I started this whole series. The first one I did was Be That Featured Bitch, was basically like for because I have a lot of people that follow me that run their own businesses and like, and I was like, okay, then we're gonna do this. So I did Be That Featured Bitch, which was all about getting press and PR and building your own PR and media kit because I've gotten all my press, everything I've ever done, never working with a publicist or an agency. So I taught women that. That was really fun.
Wow.
We've had like massive success. I've already had two women with two major articles come out in the last like month. And then the next one I'm teaching is Be That Witchy Bitch,
Oh
which is
wow.
all about tapping into your intuitive gifts. So these are 8 week long programs. And the first step we're learning is like how to really tap into our confidence in a really intuitive way that connects to our knowing and our inner knowing and our wisdom. And then from there, how to create the capacity to start to access these gifts
Mm.
because you have to, like, that's the biggest thing. You can't, like, you have to have the space for them.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then I'm teaching how to use color, how to, yeah, all the things. It's a whole bag.
I'm gonna read about all this on your website. I'm gonna stick these links in
Yeah,
the show notes.
I just want to encourage everyone to go to my website, which is Aura Wear NYC, like wear like a shirt, WEAR, .com. And on there is a test. Funny enough, speaking of personality diagnosis, there's a test on there called the Aura Quiz, and you can kind of find out what's kind of like your style, like in your kind of personal style and energy. So like you can find out that kind of like that part of you.
So cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
This
you're
has been
so
great.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hey, if you like this podcast episode, please download it, give us a nice review, and follow us on Instagram at Journey with VRD to get all the latest and the greatest updates. Till next week.